Okay, Coach Matthew here again. Rectus femoris, quads. Gonna be tight on everyone. Most everyone, I should say. Let's not overgeneralize here, but point being is if we feel like we're sitting a lot during the day, we feel like, man, maybe like my hamstrings feel a little tight. Why are we gonna start with the quads? I think we're gonna experience it. I think that's the best way to talk about this, is we're always in hip flexion, which when I stand up here in a moment, I'll show you and then I'll get you into position. But before I do, what equipment do we need? We're gonna go with the large foam roller again. Foam, this is one option. A little bit easier on-ramp for everyone with this. Standard, shout out to fitness gear. Just a little medicine ball, so just an 8-pound medicine ball. I'm gonna use this for the soft tissue work today to specifically get into the long head of the quad, okay, rectus femoris. We can still be getting some of the other tissues, our hip flexors, TFL, IT band. We'll be getting into all of that stuff. But again, let's be more general as we start this. We don't need to make this more complicated than it needs to be. We're trying to create pressure. Very much like when you squeeze a sponge, real tight, right? What happens? Everything gets pushed out. And then if that sponge is moist enough, if it's wet enough, as we release, we have what? A reabsorption of all of everything around it. So we can go from very dry to saturated. And that's really what we're looking to do here, is pressurize our tissue so much so that we can get some hydration and some blood flow back into the tissues. If we do, I'm thinking, and I know we'll take ourselves a bit out of pain. At the very least, our nerves and our body will be much more aware of what's being expected of it. So without further ado, rectus femoris, I will not be doing the full 2 minutes. I'll do about a minute on my right leg, just so you can see. I'll switch over to my other leg just so you can see the setup from left side to right side. But again, about 2 minutes. I know it's gonna be painful. 2 to 5 minutes on either side. And this will pay dividends. It won't always hurt this bad. It will get better over time. So we'll set up on the forearms, trying to maintain a plank position as we start with the ball on the midline of the femur. Once we find that midline of the femur, we're gonna get a slight amount of flexion in that trail leg. When I stand up as we finish, we'll understand this cumulative process of hip flexion as we are in our constant bipedal walking pattern. This is really what we should see our hip doing constantly, is in this slight amount of extension, and we can pressurize a little bit of this tissue on the top of the quad. So I think as you begin, you might find, hey, maybe this spot hurts a little bit more today. Maybe, hey, I'm working with a buddy, I'm working with a friend. They may feel it a little bit higher on the leg. I generally see with most everyone is you want to start at least halfway up, and then you'll see some sort of response halfway to the 7/8 point. Somewhere in there, you're going to see your body react. Find the spot that causes you to grimace a bit, and then just hold. We're not trying to rush this pattern, something that we can just take our time. We're going to want to move. You're going to want to diminish this pain response. But this is the first effort for us to work on our breathing. So can I expand my diaphragm with my inhalation? Trying to expand that rib cage. And as I exhale, can I find myself drawing in my core, finding a place of strength and calm, ultimately when this sometimes may feel overwhelming. And that's our long-term goal, is to find calm and maybe some turmoil, especially when we're in a painful spot. All right, so you see this side, I'm working my right leg right now. As we finish, you can add a bit of movement into it, totally fine with that. We always want the elbows underneath the shoulders. Often we can find ourselves leaning back, especially when we're planking. But this becomes a self-awareness effort of elbows underneath our shoulders as we pressurize. So to switch, and come up, generally in a kneeling position, find a bit of relief. Once you get out of here, you're like, ooh, okay, that feels pretty nice. Let some blood come back into there. Opposite side setup. I'm gonna roll over to my left femur. I'm gonna extend my leg out. I generally like to gently drop myself down, then arriving onto my forearms. And this leg, as you see closest to you, is just externally rotated. And again, I add that little bit of bend in my back leg, and this begins the rolling process. you know, I really hope with these videos is to pull back this curtain of exercise being so confusing. Like, what do I do? You know, I kind of want to make a paint by colors, and then you be unique and you get to choose the colors. Just do the movements. This feels a little bit better on my left leg. I know we always have asymmetries between left and right side. You'll find those for yourself experientially. Each side of your body is going to feel a little different. You know, overall, long term, we want to bring some symmetry. So that feels nice. Hold. And as I stand back up here, understanding the principle of this bipedal movement. Sorry for missing my head here, you're not missing much. But as we step, this femur comes back, right? So we just did that extension, but every time I walk, every time I bend my knee, this hip is going into flexion. And this femur has become a little shorter each of those times. So as we first come into the gym, as we first come into our workout, often we'll start with the back, start with the spine, and or priority would be the front of the quads. Jumping right from the quads, I think, you know, one of our pinnacle, one of our cornerstone body parts is going to be the glutes. You know, maybe they catch a lot of popularity, a lot of movement patterns. But for us, we're talking about compression and pressure today. So we want to think about pressurizing these glutes. A couple of tools we can use for the glutes is going to be lacrosse ball. This lacrosse ball is going to be more for our specialty tissues, so getting more into like glute medius. Maybe getting into the glute eventually. This is going to hurt, so we don't want to necessarily start here. But as we come in transition to these glutes, we're going to use, again, the 8-pound medicine ball. If we find that this is maybe a little bit too difficult for us, what we can do is we can use our foam roller, and we can use that foam roller to do our glutes.